Imagine this, my friend. There's a man whose wife was murdered by a certain zombie. After her death, he sets out on a quest to track down the very zombie that killed his wife so he can finish it off and exact his revenge. Along the way, he travels the world, relentlessly hunting down zombies, hoping to wipe them all out while still finding that one responsible for his wife's death. It's a wild, crazy idea, isn't it? We're going to break down this concept in today's video. Let's get started. The movie opens by telling us that a devastating plague has swept across the globe, triggering a zombie epidemic that completely destroys the world. But these aren't your average zombies. You see, they can't go out during the day because the sun burns them, so they only emerge at night, much like vampires. Crystal clear, right? Now we meet a guy named Tony. We learn that Tony is constantly on the move, killing zombies wherever he goes, for reasons that will soon be revealed. At one point, Tony enters a small shop and discovers a zombie trapped inside a refrigerator. Without wasting any time, he drags the refrigerator out of the shop and opens it, causing one of the zombies to come out. Of course, as soon as it's exposed to sunlight, the zombie starts burning. Tony just stands there watching it burn before he eventually shrugs and moves on. Shortly thereafter, Tony falls asleep and dreams about his wife, Kitty, who died some time ago. He wakes up instantly, heartbroken. It's clear that the zombies killed his wife, Kitty, and that's why Tony is so determined to wipe them out. Later, Tony enters a house with the intention of killing any zombies inside. The moment he steps in, he comes face to face with one. He starts firing at it, but the shots don't seem to affect the creature at all. Puzzled, Tony approaches it, only to discover that it isn't a zombie at all. It's actually a normal girl who has taken her own life. That explains why she wasn't moving or reacting to his gunfire. Just as Tony is about to leave the house, a group of zombies suddenly attack him. Without hesitation, he fights back, killing them all, except for one who charges at him. Tony manages to fend that one off with a burst of gunfire, finishes it off, and then leaves the scene. Not long after, we see Tony perched on the roof of a building, cleaning his rifle. Every round he fires represents a zombie he's taken down. Then, while sitting there, Tony hears a noise coming from the street. Curious, he heads out and finds a seemingly deranged woman sitting in the middle of the street. She's clutching a child's doll and keeps insisting that it's her son. After a while, a police car pulls up right in front of her, and 4 officers step out, one of whom is a girl named Sam. One of the 4, a man named Mike, approaches the woman to see what's wrong with her. Suddenly, however, a gang appears and starts shooting at Mike, killing him, revealing that this was all a setup and that the woman on the ground is actually connected to the gang. The gang then emerges from all sides and starts firing on Sam and her companions, killing everyone except Sam. Next, the gang moves in on Sam to overpower her, but just then Tony shows up. He starts blasting the gang members one after another, even managing to wound their leader, though not kill him, and demands to know about the crazy woman on the ground. The gang leader explains that her name is Annabella, a woman who lost her mind after her son died. He and his crew found her on the road, brought her along, and now she helps them set up ambushes on anyone who crosses their path. After that, the gang leader leaves Tony, effectively meeting his end. Meanwhile, Sam goes over to Annabella and says, "Come with me. We're heading to a safe place where we can live." Annabella agrees, and the two set off together. Soon after, Sam and Annabella meet up with Tony. Sam asks Tony to take her to the place where she and her group are hiding, promising to supply him with provisions and ammunition in return. Tony agrees, picks up Sam and Annabella, and they set off on their journey. Not long later, they reach an area close to where Sam's group is holed up, a location that happens to be a prison. It's already nightfall, and as a result, zombies begin to appear. But Tony doesn't let that slow him down. He continues on toward the prison where Sam's people are sheltering. As soon as Sam arrives at the prison, she contacts a man named Ethan from her group, who's been monitoring the situation through security cameras. Sam explains that she's on her way and that zombies are right behind her, so they need to open the gate to let her and her companions in safely. Ethan agrees, leaves his post, and goes to gather the rest of the group. The first person he contacts is a man named Chris, who, by the way, is the brother of Mike, the officer who was killed by the gang. After that, they go to meet Frank, the leader of the group and Ethan's father. Frank and the rest of the men are picked up, and together they open the prison gates and begin fighting off the zombies alongside Tony and everyone else. Once everyone is inside, they start securing the gate. At that moment, Tony notices a particularly stubborn zombie approaching. He goes into a frenzy trying to take it down, but the gate closes, and Tony doesn't get the chance to finish the job. Shortly thereafter, Frank, Ethan, Chris, and their men gather with Tony and Sam, and they ask Sam what happened to Mike and the rest of her team. Sam explains that they were all killed by a gang, and that Tony was the one who saved her and brought her here. At that point, a burly guy named Dojin starts accusing Tony of originally being part of the gang, only to have a change of heart and then betray them, alleging that he colluded with Sam in order to kill everyone and steal all their ammunition and supplies. Immediately, Chris believes Dojin's story and begins accusing Tony of killing his own brother, Mike. Tensions flare, and everyone starts fighting amongst themselves. But Sam quickly quiets everyone down. She then speaks with Frank, explaining that she, Mike, and the rest of her group had actually managed to locate an airplane. This revelation lifts everyone's spirits, as we learn that Sam, Mike, and the others had set out to find an airplane so they could escape and reach a colony inhabited solely by humans, a place where zombies can't reach them. Next, Sam gathers Frank, Tony, and the rest into a room where she lays out a map showing the location of the airplane. We also learn that one of their own, a pilot named Vince, will be flying them. Everyone agrees that tomorrow morning they'll collect their vehicles and head for the airplane. Frank then pulls Tony aside and tells him that tomorrow he'll hand over everything that Sam agreed upon, but that he won't allow Tony to carry a weapon today because he doesn't trust him. Tony gets upset, but Sam persuades him to relinquish his weapon, and he does. Later, Ethan takes Tony to the place where he's going to spend the night. There, Ethan explains that Frank, his father, is a good man, but he acts so cautiously because things got complicated ever since Ethan's other brother, Rivan, turned into a zombie. Tony begins to understand the situation, and then he asks Ethan about a massive zombie he saw at the gate, a zombie he was determined to kill. Ethan explains that this enormous zombie is different from all the others because it's smart. It gathers a horde of zombies around it that obey its commands. Ethan then asks Tony why he's so fixated on this particular zombie and why he wants to kill it, but Tony refuses to answer. Tony is then locked up in a cell for the night. During that time, Sam visits him and asks about the massive zombie and his reasons for wanting to kill it. Tony finally reveals that this zombie is the one who turned his wife, Kitty, into a zombie. In other words, he wants revenge on it. We also learn that this colossal zombie is known as Alpha. From this point on, we'll simply call it Alpha. After all that, Ethan is watching the security cameras when suddenly they all go dark. He calls Chris and Frank over, and they all try to figure out what happened. None of them can explain the blackout. Soon enough, they hear the sound of gunfire, and they realize that a zombie has infiltrated the building, the same one that caused the cameras to shut off. Sure enough, a zombie enters and starts roaming about, killing anyone in its path until Tony appears and takes it down, effectively ending the night. After that, they discover that one of the fighters in the earlier skirmish has been injured and is in the process of turning into a zombie. Reluctantly, Frank is forced to put him down, and he does so with great sorrow. The next day, everyone leaves the prison to head for the airplane, but when they try to open the prison door, it won't budge. They exit through another door, and that's when the shock sets in. Every vehicle they plan to use for their escape is wrecked, with zombies having blocked the garage door, leaving them unable to open it. They all come to the realization that the zombies have arranged things so that there's no escape. They can simply finish them off. The group gathers in Frank's room and begins to brainstorm. One idea is to use the daylight to move the cars away from the gate, then bring in other vehicles to drive off. However, this plan fails because as soon as they move the vehicles, the zombies return at night and block them again as if nothing had changed. At that point, Tony steps in with his own crazy idea. They should arm him with weapons and explosives so that he can head to the hotel where Alpha and his horde are holed up and take Alpha out once and for all. His plan is that by eliminating Alpha, all the zombies around him will scatter, allowing everyone to escape without further harm. Even though Tony's plan sounds insane, everyone agrees to give it a try since they have no other choice. The next day, Tony sets out with Chris, Ethan, a guy named Vlad, and another named Drew. Their destination is the hotel where Alpha resides, and they intend to take him down. Meanwhile, Sam and a few others decide to leave in search of vehicles to escape. Following Tony's group, we see them arriving at the hotel where Alpha and his followers are gathered. They enter the building and search around until they encounter a zombie that kills someone and devours him. They continue wandering through the hotel until they finally reach the basement, the area where all the zombies and Alpha are sleeping. At that moment, Drew grabs a bomb and heads off to detonate it among the zombies, but before he can set it off, one of the zombies kills him. This loss triggers all the zombies to wake up. In a mad scramble, Tony and his team scatter and continue fighting off the zombies while trying to escape. We then see that Vlad gets bitten. Despite his injury, he fights on with courage. Tony and Ethan manage to reach the roof of the hotel, but they can't find Chris. And there's a problem. Chris was holding onto the rope they needed to escape from the roof. They go back down searching for him until they finally find him, only to discover that he's already been killed by the zombies. Ethan is understandably upset, and he takes the rope from Chris. At that very moment, zombies attack Ethan, but Tony comes to his rescue, fending off the attackers, grabbing Ethan, and they make their escape. They then return to the roof in an attempt to leave, but before they can, Ethan realizes he's been bitten by a zombie. He pleads with Tony to end his suffering, and with great sorrow, Tony obliges. Tony then rappels down from the hotel using the rope, with zombies in hot pursuit, and he manages to keep running away from them. Meanwhile, we see that Sam has returned to the prison, though she only managed to secure a small car, the only vehicle she could find, and no one is quite sure if it'll hold up. In the midst of all this chaos, Dojin reappears, this time with his own small car. Being the scumbag he is, Dojin offers Pilot Vince a deal: abandon everyone and join him in his car to get to the airplane, but Vince refuses. Shortly after, another person arrives, one of those who had been searching for vehicles, and he shows up with a bus that can carry everyone to safety. For a moment, everyone is thrilled. However, their joy is short-lived when Tony returns, accompanied by hundreds of zombies. In a frantic rush, everyone starts shooting at the zombies and retreats back into the prison. Dojin tries to escape, but is killed as well. Tony and the remaining survivors enter the prison and split up to fight the zombies with unwavering courage. Sadly, many people lose their lives, including Frank, but still, no one loses their fighting spirit, and they continue to battle the zombies. Then, out of nowhere, Tony comes face to face with Alpha. He goes completely berserk, launching an all-out assault on Alpha. The two exchange brutal blows until Tony, using his cunning, manages to lure Alpha up onto the roof and traps him there. Now it's daylight. The sun begins to scorch Alpha, and in the end, Alpha dies right before Tony's eyes. At last, Tony feels that he has avenged his wife, who Alpha had turned into a zombie. Finally, everything comes to an end, and the threat dissipates. Tony joins Sam, Vince, and the others for what turns out to be a happy journey. They reach the airplane safely and head off to the colony where they can live in peace. Before parting ways, Tony tells Sam that he'll continue roaming the world, hunting and killing zombies until they're all gone, or at least as many as possible. With that, he says his goodbyes and sets off on his own path. While Sam too continues on her journey, both unsure if fate will ever bring them together again. And that's the end of the film. That's all. Goodbye.